Well, let me first talk about Everbridge and I, but before I get into Everbridge itself, let me talk about my very first day at Everbridge. April 15, 2013. Some of us call it the tax day because that's when the taxes are due, right? In Massachusetts, it's a holiday because we celebrate Patriots' Day that day. It's also important for one another reason. That's the day Boston Marathon runs. This is what happened that day. At the finish line, 2 bombs went off. Right in the corner, you can see right over there. This is where Everbridge sprung into action. Our company played a crucial role in the response to the Boston Marathon bombings. City of Boston Police Department, later on a couple of neighboring towns, Watertown and Waltham, they all used our services to keep their people safe throughout these man-made disasters. And that's what Everbridge does. We keep people safe and businesses running. We started right after 9/11, and the whole purpose was to bridge the gap where, whether it's a man-made disaster or natural disaster, like Hurricane Irma that happened this past weekend, there was a gap in that the government agencies, whether it's the police department, the fire department, the mayor's office, or the governor's office, could not reach their citizens in time or could not coordinate evacuation efforts or safety efforts. This is where Everbridge sprung in. We provided coverage for high severity but low frequency personal safety and saving lives kind of situations. Over the years, we've grown quite a bit. We've also expanded into other spaces, and now we are serving increasingly broader needs. I'll talk about some of that in a minute. But we are now also talking about operational efficiency. High frequency, you're sending 1 or 2 messages on a given day, every minute for IT alerting issues, staffing needs, et cetera, et cetera. This is where Everbridge fills not just the state and local government or energy sector or transportation needs. We also serve business and IT needs. Service operations, DevOps, security operations. I'm going to talk some about that and how it's relevant to you guys. Just last point on Everbridge. We are the market leaders. 9 out of 10 investment banks use us. 8 out of 10 largest cities use us. And in fact, all of the busiest North American airports use us. You can see some of our marquee customers at the bottom. Gartner named us a leader in their Magic Quadrant, and we are the only publicly traded company in this space. We went public last September, actually 362 days ago for those that are counting. So let's get to it. We are a software as a service platform, and we deliver our product, our software, through a web service. Any software as a service solution goes through at least these 3 phases, whether you're building your initial offering or just adding a new feature or enhancement. You build it, you test it, and then you monitor the heck out of it. Because if the service is not functional, then you're not making money, your customers are getting impacted, and the more you impact them, the more likely they are to walk away from you and find a competitor. This is where SmartBear comes in. We use their Swagger, their Ready API, and the AlertSite solutions for each of these 3 phases of our service delivery. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the details. So let's talk about building the platform. Our platform is very intuitive, pretty looking web user interface, but there is a complementary API piece to it. In fact, our API has all the functionality that the UI has. And from day one of our solution, APIs have been critical to not just us, but also for our customer base. When we rebuilt our platform in 2012, APIs were upgraded to the Open API standard, and this is where Swagger came in. These are just some of the methods that we exposed, but to drill into some of the details, our customers use the Notifications API a lot, which, for example, allows state and local governments to integrate their 911 systems, their computer-aided dispatch systems, so that there is an accident or an overdose or a fire. They can get the on-call or off-duty staff to that scene in the most optimal time. Or the scheduling piece. This allows a lot of our customers to manage schedules of their staff. An example of it is a nuclear agency uses this to manage schedule of their on-call staff, and they use us extensively to practice government-mandated nuclear meltdown scenario tests. Or incident management. You guys, some of you might be in, if not directly, indirectly be impacted by production incidences. This method allows our customers to create, trigger, and manage incidences. And I'll talk about some of the details in a little bit. But again, all of this is built on top of Swagger. Well, that's the first generation. We've not just stopped at providing this API to our customers. We also have started using this API internally. When you post on Facebook, or when you search something on your smartphone, or literally any mobile app that you use, except for maybe calculator, how does it do its magic? It is talking to an API on the back end on the server side. In our case, we've chosen to use Swagger, the Open API framework, for implementing that. And again, internally, as we move more and more away from monolithic architecture and a microservices architecture, we're implementing all of those interactions between services using the Open API framework. All right. So now we talked about building. Well, we built it. How do you know if it's working well? Well, you get to test it, right? This is where Ready API comes in. Our software QA team uses Ready API for functional testing. You can see all the various API functions. Well, not all of them, but some of the various API functions are being tested as part of this test suite. Then, a new version of the platform is being released. They use it for regression testing. Hey, create a user. Make sure that the user is created properly. Update the user, modify this. Send an email to the users welcoming them to use the system. All those calls using the API being tested as part of a regression test suite using the Ready API solution. But you can't forget scale. You have to be able to scale your solution. Just because it works in a proof of concept scenario doesn't mean that it's going to work when 10,000 of your customers start using it. And this is where load and capacity testing and performance testing comes in. Again, LoadUI baked into Ready API is what we use to load test some of the critical methods that are important to our customer base. Don't pay attention to that red line because that's the errors line. We don't want to see that. All right, so we built it, we tested it, we've deployed it. Going back to what I said earlier, we have to monitor the heck out of it. This is where AlertSite fits in. This is our global operations center. You can see in the corner over there, there's AlertSite. In fact, it takes up about 1/3 of the screen space and is the biggest screen in our NOC. A lot of different aspects of our solution, anywhere from API to UI to transactional monitoring, all of them are right up there, front and center, in front of our 24/7 NOC operations. With AlertSite, we've been able to reduce our mean time to repair significantly over the last 4 years. Before, when an incident happened in production, the dev team would say, well, show me what happened. I don't believe you, effectively. And then there's the battle of the ops and dev teams, right? Well, now, using the AlertSite data, that gulf has virtually disappeared. Now we're truly dev on, not anymore dev on one side and ops on the other side, but dev and ops together. Because data from AlertSite has shown the dev team what the production problems are. So, anytime an AlertSite alert comes in, an incident is opened. And I'll talk about some of the automation in a little bit. That incident start time is marked with the AlertSite alert. It is the end of that incident is marked with AlertSite. If everybody else believes that the platform's fine or that particular service is okay, but AlertSite alert has not cleared, we don't close the incident. Our customer-facing service level agreement and the data behind it is supported with the data from AlertSite. Let me talk about an example event that happened just about a couple weeks ago. We use a group chat solution to communicate globally, and one of the NOC engineers on the West Coast posted this alert saying, hey, and by the way, this is not even a failure alert. This is just a response time alert. Saying, hey, we see more than 3-4 locations in an error condition. They show an elevated response time. We got to do something. Another NOC engineer from the East Coast jumped in, logged into AlertSite, looked at the chart, said, oh, look, the response time truly is going up, and it's been going up for the last 10 minutes or so. And then another one looked and said, oh, look, here's the page level breakdown, and there are a couple of pages that are worse off than the others. There's got to be something specific to those pages. Another one then was jumping in and then starting to correlate data with other solutions. But it all started with AlertSite. We also, tying back into APIs, we also use our API monitoring in such a way, using AlertSite, so that we can pinpoint exactly where the problem is. We have what I would call a hub and a spoke kind of architecture where some of the services are centrally located. Other services are more regionally oriented for customers in different regions. And so we know, and even within those regional services, each service has one or more specific methods associated with it organically. That's how it happened to be. But us on the ops side are using that to our advantage. We have each of those methods monitored through AlertSite globally, multiple locations, round the clock, 10 or 12 locations every 5 minutes. It's cheap, right? It's just a single API call. It's not nearly as expensive as running a whole transaction through the UI. But one region, or even just one service in one region, or core, doesn't matter where, right, has an issue. That method's going to start failing. Comparing one method versus all the rest, or comparing all the ones together, we know whether it's a system-wide issue, a regional issue, or a very small service-specific issue. And we can jump right to solving that all through this external monitoring that's implemented through AlertSite. But we didn't stop there. You see, just because we can deliver the service out doesn't mean that our customers are getting it. Our whole purpose is to send the messages out send the message right time, right message to the right person. But what if the person doesn't receive the message? What if we send it out there, kind of a message in a bottle in the ocean, then it takes 20 years before somebody gets it on the other side? It's no good in our business, right? Which is why we use AlertSite API monitoring to trigger notifications, which are then processed by our platform, sent either via SMS or email or phone call. And we, in fact, monitor all three of these methods. And they are delivered to external services, third-party vendors. And then we use AlertSite and other tools to monitor those endpoints to make sure that the message has been received. Because if the message is not received, we've not done our job. We can even integrate AlertSite into our response management process. Whether it's your monitoring solution internal or AlertSite, it can send a notification into Everbridge. Everbridge platform would assess the alert based on the settings you've set up. It will say, oh, this type of incident requires a DBA and a network person to jump in and try troubleshoot. They would locate who's on call, and it will act based on the on-call scheduling, escalation processes, and the communication collaboration tools that you may have set up. Whether it's the tier 1 knock response, or the escalation to the IT response team, or a management escalation to senior management saying, hey, everything is hunky-dory, we've got it covered, but you should listen in just in case we need your input. Any of those escalations, our customers can and do set up using AlertSite and other tools, integrating into our platform to make their whole incident management process smooth and efficient. In fact, I'm going to show you how it's done. So I'm going to switch to our sandbox org because I don't want to monkey with production now, do I? And I've just set up a template. And again, just to make it easier for me to demonstrate this here, I've set up an email template. This is an email that is based on a TCP connection failure, right? I can send a test of this template. And that will trigger, and because I've set it up as such, close an incident. Here's the incident 953. It sent service no production incident message. It has not yet sent the message, but it will soon. Yep, it sent a message to my text. Wonderful world of Google Voice. Ah, there it is. Of course, it also pinged my cell phone, but it was easier to show you on the screen than on my cell phone. Oh, and by the way, it's going to keep bugging me. It's going to keep calling me that, hey, you haven't picked up this incident. You haven't responded to it. So I'm going to tell it to shut up. And that will, in a second, show up in our system to say, oh yeah, SK is confirmed. All of this started with a single alert from AlertSite. And that's it.